What's up? Coach Nate with another episode of Steel Strength Radio, and I just had a moment of inspiration because I just got done training the 9 a.m. group on this amazing Monday morning. I don't know what day you're watching it, but it's Monday when I'm filming this. So I wanted to share this with you. Now, this is a topic I have discussed over and over and over again, and it is a topic that I will continue to discuss over and over and over again because this is an extremely important concept that you want to understand in your training. Okay, look, it's the idea of training movements versus muscles, but I'm going to explain it a slightly different way today. If you're new to this, if you've never heard me talk about this, fantastic. Pull up a seat. You're going to want to listen. And if you've heard me explain this before, you probably want to pull up a chair and listen anyway because I'm going to, maybe say things a little bit differently this time. So in the example with the client that I was training, she started off with doing deadlifts, and then she did her hex press and her bent over dumbbell rows. Rather, her bent over dumbbell rows and then her hex press. And then she finished up with some lateral raises and some skull crushers, which are for the shoulders and for the triceps, respectively. Okay, so this is what I explained to her, and this is what I want to explain to you. We've kind of got these movements on a spectrum. On this end, we've got our deadlifts, our big, heavy barbell movements. This is going to be your squat, your deadlift, your press, which is the shoulder press with a barbell, and the bench press. These are what we call main lifts, all right? Then we have what we call secondary lifts, which are basically, they're still compound movements, meaning they're using multiple joints. They kind of mimic the main lifts, but they're usually done with kettlebells, dumbbells, body weight. They're basically just not done with barbells. So this would be, or perhaps even, they're done with barbells, but they're done with a different intention. For example, like the heel elevated squat for like 12 to 15 reps. That's more of a secondary style movement, all right? And I'll explain why in a second. And then we've got what we call our tertiary movements, which are going to be your single joint isolation movements like lateral raises, arm stuff. Basically anything that's going to hit like shoulders, biceps, triceps, abs. Again, just kind of training one muscle at a time, all right? And generally you're using lighter loads, body weight or some very low loads, when compared to like the secondary movements, and those are using less loads when compared to the main lifts. Okay, so here's the thing. When you are training your main lifts, your barbell lifts, your heavy movements, the goal is performance. Of course, let me just say, quick caveat, quick note, you of course, you want to use good form on all of these. Good form is a requirement to do any of these. So we're not assuming that good form is going out the window for any of these, but assuming good form, then the following is true. When you're doing your main lifts, your big heavy barbell movements, performance is the goal, all right? When I'm doing a squat, a deadlift, a bench press, a shoulder press, I'm not thinking on that squat, oh, am I squeezing do I feel my glutes working? Oh, are my quads fatigued? Oh, when I'm doing a bench press, oh, do I feel my pecs working? No, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking with this good form, how can I control the weight down and explode up as powerfully as possible? How can I move as much weight / reps as possible? It's all about performance. It's all about performance. I'm training a movement. I'm not training a muscle. Of course, the muscles are absolutely being worked, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking about lifting more weight. Okay. The secondary movements are kind of like a blend between the main lifts and the tertiary lifts. So let's talk about the tertiary lifts. The tertiary lifts are almost exclusively done by focusing on the muscle and making it as difficult as possible for the muscle. So, for example, when I'm doing a curl, even though I might be able to curl larger dumbbells, I'll settle for more of a moderate weight and just really focus on nice and controlled. I might even settle for like a light to moderate weight that's really slow and controlled, really just feeling the muscle working, full range of motion, getting a nice squeeze. And I'm actually focusing on the muscle that I'm targeting. So, biceps for curls. When I'm doing lateral raises, I'm really thinking about my shoulders, my delts working. I'm focusing on that mind-muscle connection. And the goal is opposite of the main lift. So the main lifts, you want to make a heavy weight feel light. Now, a heavyweight's not going to feel light, but that's the idea. You want to throw it around with as much force and power as you can. And then with these lighter movements, these tertiary movements, you want to make a lightweight feel hard. You want to take a weight that's light to moderate and go slow and controlled and get close to failure. Even though you could do more weight, the goal is not to do a lateral raise with as much weight as possible. Those isolation movements are just not conducive to lots of heavy lifting, generally speaking. And generally speaking, your main lifts are very conducive and safe and effective to lift very heavy for relatively low reps. So your secondary movements are kind of be in the middle. They can kind of go either way, but I generally on those, you're focusing on, so for example, on a like she was doing the hex press. All right, let's focus on, working the chest, but let's control it down. Let's explode up. Let's still focus on performance. So let's kind of both think about the muscle we're working and drive performance. When you're doing the dumbbell rows, think about, controlling it, feeling the lat stretch, and then pull and squeeze, but do so explosively with power, with force. Whereas we're kind of just ignoring the explosive piece unless we specify otherwise. We're kind of ignoring the explosive piece on your curls, your lateral raises, things like that. You're just kind of slow and controlled the whole way. And on your main lifts, you're always focusing on control down, explode up. It's all about performance, and the secondary movements are right in the middle. So, generally speaking, go as hard and as heavy as you possibly can with good form on your main lifts. On your secondary movements, focus on the target muscle, and while you're doing that, lift as hard and as heavy as you possibly can. On your tertiary lifts, make it as hard as you possibly can, and then so I gave the example to this girl I was training today. Look, once you can do 5 pounds on your lateral raises, because she was saying, look, 8 pounds is way too hard, 5 pounds is too easy. I said, okay, take the 5s, go really slow and controlled, up, down, try to make the 5s hard. And I said, by the time that you can do sets of 20 reps, which is the top end of the range we're doing, by the time you can do 5 pounds for 20 reps, 8 pounds for 15 reps or whatever, at a normal pace is going to feel very easy. So I'm always looking to add load on the main lifts any chance that I can. On the tertiary movements, I only add weight once it just becomes way too easy and I have to add weight. So hopefully that helps you guys in this idea of training movements versus training muscles. Using all these styles of training, thinking about your movements differently, there are unique benefits to each one, so incorporate all of them, but just make sure you're focusing on the right thing at the right time with the right movement.